Hey there, this is Malorian, and this is going to be another video about Warmachine and Hordes. I just did one talking about how you make a list, and so I want to do another one now that talks about what are these tier lists. So sometimes you might hear that, oh, this is a tier 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever it is, and maybe some name for the tier, right? This is this tier, blah, blah. This is the Fist of Halak or whatever. And what does this actually mean? Well, what it really is a theme force that Privateer Press makes for each of the casters. So there is not just random models they come out with. There is a storyline for all of these casters. And what the theme force does is allows you to build an army around that theme. Now, you can always just do that anyway, right? You can just build whatever lists you want, but what the tier lists let you do is they give you a benefit for doing that. So by the way, you're going to be really limited to these models, but here's this bonus, and then here's another bonus too. So I'm going to go and show you another site now. Now, last time I talked to you guys about Forward Commander, a site I really love. You can use that for building your lists, and all the tier lists will be on there too. And we'll be popping over there in a second, but one of the things I want to show you first is Battle College. Now, Battle College, if you don't want to go out and buy all the books, if you don't want to go out and buy all the cards, you can get almost all the information here. So on the left here, you can kind of see that there's all this information. Make sure that, remember, we're in Mark 2, so if you somehow gone to the Mark 1 archive, make sure you get out of that or else you get some bad information. But we're going to go over here to Signar. Underneath here, you'll see that all the characters, all the casters, rather, the jacks, the units, everything is all listed here. But all the tier lists are going to be just with these guys here. And each of them have a tier list, at least one. Normally, well, all the time I'd actually think it is, when a book comes out with a new caster, there is actually as well a tier list that's associated with them. Now, Privateer Press also has a magazine that they release called No Quarter, and sometimes they add additional tier lists to those. Now, the real problem is that if you don't buy the books and if you don't buy the No Quarter magazine and you want to get access to these cool tiers, there's not really a good way of doing it. You can't really buy sheets of paper that list all the tiers. However, if you do have War Room, which is the Privateer Press app that you can have on your iPod, then all of a sudden you can be using that, and it'll list all the tier information there. So it depends where you want to go. And unfortunately, Battle College has to kind of protect themselves. They don't give all the stats, and for some of the tier benefits, they'll be kind of vague, but we can get a lot of information here. So the first one I'm going to be going to is I'm going to be going to Kane. So we're going to go to Epic Kane, Kane 2, one of my favorite casters, and it's going to say here his feat, special abilities. You can see here for stats, they're just going to say in general what he has. Like these things are above average, these are low. But down at the very bottom is where you're going to be finding the tiers. Now here, you can see that you have this one called the Huntsman and this one here called Street Sweepers. One comes from the book when he was released. The other one comes from an old quarter. Now at the top, you'll see all the things that you're only allowed to take. So, of course, your only caster could be Kane 2. For Warjacks, you're allowed to take any non-character light jacks. So you can't even take heavy jacks. Heavy jacks are right off the table. Can't take Thorn unless for some reason later on they release a light that might be allowed from, and it'll say it right on the card. So that does come up. Units, it has to be Arcane Tempest units or Rangers, and solos, only Arcane Tempest solos. A lot of times they like being a little bit vague with this instead of actually listing them all, because in the future, more of those types of units come out, and they don't want to have to re-release the tiers. So that's why. Now, you're going to see the tiers coming down the side here. Now, each one will have a requirement and then a benefit. And I can't skip down and say, like, well, these suck. I just want this one. To get to number 2, I have to have number 1. To get to number 3, I have to have 2 and 1, and so on and so on. Now, for Tier 1, we can see that if I only use the above models, I get to redeploy a model or unit after both sides have deployed. That's actually really, really good to redeploy. Now, up here as well, saying, okay, you have to field at least 2 arcane gun mage units. Well, that's awesome. You know, I'm going to probably take 2 of them anyway. They're great. And if I do that, I'm going to get a free gun mage solo for free. So that's awesome. That's 2 points I'm just getting for free. No, he's not maybe the best solo, but hey, you know, when you're free, you're pretty damn good. You must include at least 1 ranger unit in your army. Hey, you know, I'm probably going to take rangers anyway. Rangers make all my shooting better. And if I do that, whoa, in-game effect for your first turn. Okay, so this is where all of a sudden, you know, what this is probably going to be is you get a +1 to going first, or maybe you got an advanced move. But this will actually force you to go to the book or find it somewhere else. Of course, over the internet, you can find this somewhere, but just know that if you aren't going with War Room or with the actual book, you might have to deal with this. Tier 4, Kane's Bella group must include at least 2 Lancers. Ugh. You know, I don't know if I want 2 Lancers with him. So you know what? Maybe I'm going to stop at Tier 3. Maybe I'm going to make a Tier 3 Huntsman. But if I do go Tier 4, then I get this first turn in-game effect. Again, oh, what does that mean? I'll have to go find out. Now, the very first thing you might think is like, wow, this is awesome. Look at all this free stuff I get. I mean, why not just go with this? This is fantastic, right? Well, you have to also keep in mind that this limited allowance to your army is a big deal. For Kane, normally because he's all about shooting and trying to get the most shots, because the more times he shoots for his feet, he gets stronger and stronger. So he always wants Reinhold to get 1 more shot. He wants the Squire to get another shot, and I can't take either of those. So that's a really big deal. Plus, maybe you really like running in with Boom Howlers or whatever else, and you just can't. They're just not here. So it really is a balance between the benefits to having the wider options. Now we'll come down here and we'll also look at the street sweepers here. I'm just gonna make sure I went the right Kane. Yeah. Anyway, you can see here for this one, what you can take is again any Signar non-character jacks with speed 6 or more. So those will again pretty much take out all the heavies, because all the heavies will be speed 5. And so really we're looking at lights again. But again, keeping it nice and open and vague because things could change in the future. Units also, now we're working on commandos. So either trencher commandos or trencher infantry. Now the solos has to be a non-character trencher solo. Not very many of those, but you know, again, obviously we're making something that's based around trenchers, whereas the last one here was based more around the Arcane Tempest. All right, Tier 1 must use the above models. Again, the Tier 1's almost always the same. Benefit: Warjacks controlled by Jack Marshals gain advanced deploy. So that's pretty awesome. They get an extra 6 into deployment. They deploy after the enemy does, so that's really good. Tier 2 must have at least 1 unit of trenchers. Well, that's pretty much all I can take, so yeah, that'll be pretty easy. And then for each trencher commando unit, you get a free scatter gunner. Just add it on. So that's a free point for each one. And then this one here, you must field at least 2 units of the trencher. So if I take 2 commandos, I get this. I get 2 free scatter gunners and some in-game effect. Again, you have to look it up. And then Tier 4, you must include at least 3 warjacks. You probably don't want to do that, but again, if you do, all of a sudden you get this in-game effect on your army. So again, you'll have to look those up. But the biggest thing I want to talk about this tier is that whereas up here, there's a lot of different arcane units you can actually take. Down here, first of all, the trenchers are more limited in what you can actually take. And as well, they're not really as good. I'm in love with commandos. Some people kind of like trenchers, but this is one where you can say, well, maybe the tier would be okay, but you want to look at 35 points. Same thing here, maybe. You know, at 50 points, I just run out of options. There's just, you know, forcing me to just Arcane Tempest is not enough to fill up 50 points. So maybe this is something where, again, it's not just a balance of for the tier, whether, okay, do I want to have the benefits or do I want to have more options? It's also a question of, well, how many points are we doing? Are we doing 50, 35, whatever can really determine whether a tier is good or not. And there's some other tiers which are just amazing. Some other tiers you just pretty much never see. There is kind of a range of good to bad with those, but it's always something you can do on the side and something you should keep in mind. Now, while we're talking about that, just something that'd be remiss not to talk about is that some armies, say like the mercenaries or the minions, they get specific benefits if, well, I guess it's more the minions. If you are blind water, you will get these swamp markers that get to start there, giving you concealment. If you're the Thornfall Alliance, you get, I believe it's advanced deploy or something with all your troops. I don't know the pigs that well. But what I'm trying to get to is that if you do the tier list, you don't get those benefits. So that's another thing you really have to keep in mind. I believe there's a few here too, like for the pirate chapter, they also have something that if you go to tier, well, you're going to kind of miss out on that. So either way, that's tier lists. So let's quickly change on back. And yeah, so tier lists, very interesting. Probably the biggest things that I want to say, though, is don't feel you have to do tier. Don't think to yourself, wow, I mean, there's all these free points and free abilities. I better find one that works for me. No, no. Find a list that works for you. Maybe the tier is, right? Maybe your play style is perfect for using this tier. And that's amazing. All of a sudden, that tier really brings it to you. But otherwise, I would really be cautious when using tiers, and especially because some tiers will force you to buy 2 units of something or get these other type of units that you wouldn't normally use. And all of a sudden, I might have now 2 units of commandos, and really, I'll only ever use it if I'm doing this tier. Or maybe I buy Idrians, or who knows what else. And you have to make sure that if you're buying what you need for this tier, are you going to be using it for other stuff as well? But either way, that's tier lists, and we'll catch you later. Bye.